movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Rachel Zegler's unexpected Instagram live session became a major turning point after the poor performance of the Snow White remake.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the...
Once promoted as a promising new face to reimagine the classic character, she soon found herself at the center of a public relations crisis. Initial buzz around the project quickly shifted to concern as box office numbers fell and theater attendance dropped.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Audiences and industry observers began searching for deeper reasons behind the film's dramatic underperformance, beyond promotional missteps or marketing fatigue. The situation escalated significantly when Zegler addressed the controversy head-on through a live stream. Her comments, which challenged long-standing elements of the original Snow White narrative and directly confronted critical opinions, triggered further backlash. The live session did not ease concerns. Instead, it magnified them, fueling headlines and igniting debate throughout Hollywood. What started as a film rollout soon turned into a full-scale cautionary tale for the entertainment industry.
Nobody wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana?
At first glance, the story behind the Snow White remake may seem familiar. A celebrated classic reimagined for a modern audience. Backed by advanced visuals, updated themes, and a new generation of actors, the project was intended to rejuvenate a beloved fairy tale. However, what was marketed as a respectful revival quickly unraveled into a case study in reputational collapse. The breakdown did not occur solely because of creative changes. It was the controversy surrounding the lead actress that shifted the narrative entirely.
Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
Rachel Zegler, known for her outspoken commentary, placed herself at the center of a growing storm. Her willingness to critique the original film's tone and explore social issues gained attention early on. At first, many found her openness refreshing, but that perception began to erode as her remarks took on a sharper, more dismissive tone.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this.
During her Instagram live rant, Zegler openly criticized elements of the original film, calling its story outdated and suggesting it required a complete overhaul. What might have been seen as progressive commentary quickly became polarizing. The live session soon represented more than a public outburst. It became a defining moment in the film's downfall. Clips from the broadcast spread rapidly, highlighting a shift in her demeanor from enthusiastic confidence to outright frustration. Her critiques of the classic were seen by many as disrespectful, especially coming from the film's lead. As audience reactions poured in and financial returns dwindled, attention turned to her conduct, framing it as a key factor in how the remake was ultimately received. Public conversation shifted away from celebrating a reimagined fairy tale to analyzing a misstep that may have permanently shaped its legacy.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
The financial outlook for the Snow White remake was far bleaker than studio projections anticipated. From the moment advanced ticket sales opened, theater owners and distribution analysts began raising concerns. Initial screenings saw attendance numbers that fell drastically below forecasts, despite months of aggressive promotion. Reports later revealed that the film's marketing campaign, which cost an extraordinary sum, failed to generate the necessary audience interest.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
This stark contrast between expected box office success and real-world performance sent shockwaves through industry circles. Many began to question whether the issue stemmed from creative changes within the film or missteps outside the production. Among the theories floated, one of the most prominent was the controversial decision to strip away the romantic themes that had defined the 1937 original. This creative departure alienated longtime fans who viewed those elements as central to the classic story. Simultaneously, another narrative began gaining traction: the widening gap between the public persona of the film's lead actress and the audience's expectations. Rachel Zegler's visible frustration, captured during her now infamous Instagram live session, became a lightning rod for criticism. In short video clips shared widely across social platforms, Zegler was seen visibly annoyed, directly addressing viewers who disagreed with the film's new direction. Her tone was described by many as defensive, while others noted an apparent glare directed at the camera, as she called critics stuck in the past. Rather than diffusing the controversy, the live stream intensified it. What some viewed as passionate defense was interpreted by many others as dismissive arrogance. While a small group praised her resolve, a much larger contingent condemned her tone and attitude toward a film regarded as a beloved cultural artifact. Adding fuel to the backlash were earlier interview clips where Zegler had downplayed or outright rejected iconic moments from the original Snow White. Critics argued these statements revealed a lack of respect for the material and contributed directly to the remake's disconnect with its audience. What might have been a modern reimagining turned into a flashpoint for debates about nostalgia, creative liberty, and public accountability. Rachel Zegler's commentary in the lead-up to Snow White's release had already stirred public discussion, but specific remarks struck a particularly sensitive chord. Her repeated dismissal of core elements from the original 1937 film, such as romantic longing, the prince's role, and the themes of love and redemption, were received not as refreshing updates, but as irreverent critiques of cherished storytelling traditions. Her framing of those elements as outdated relics came across, to many, as condescending rather than empowering. While the actress may have intended to highlight a more modern interpretation, the response was swift and overwhelmingly negative. Audiences felt disconnected from a film that seemed determined to dismantle the very enchantment that had defined the original. Snow White's historical charm was rooted in values like hope, innocence, and the notion that goodness could overcome adversity. Replacing these with cynicism or dismissiveness created a tonal rupture, alienating viewers who hoped for at least a thread of the original's magic. The confusion extended to the film itself, which critics argued suffered from an identity crisis. Mixed messaging, both in marketing and narrative structure, made it unclear whether the movie was a nostalgic revival or a complete reinvention. Rumors of extensive reshoots emerged during the controversy, with some reports suggesting they were initiated to correct narrative missteps. Others claimed the changes were aimed at reshaping the tone after early test audiences expressed dissatisfaction. In either case, production costs soared, and some insiders speculated the budget may have nearly doubled when accounting for marketing and late-stage revisions. Just as the studio attempted to steady the ship, Zegler's now infamous live stream derailed any hopes of a quiet recovery. Her outburst, characterized by open frustration and pointed remarks, became an online spectacle, sparking memes, parodies, and critical editorials. What had begun as a cinematic release had devolved into a viral flashpoint. It's important to stress that blame for the film's failure wasn't limited to one factor. Zegler's outspoken attitude certainly shaped public perception, but the content of the film itself also played a major role in the widespread disappointment. Key decisions, like removing the dwarfs or altering their presentation, drew confusion about whether these were meaningful creative choices or performative gestures. The near-total absence of a sincere romantic subplot further distanced the adaptation from its roots, resulting in a story that, to many, felt hollow. Ultimately, this version of Snow White may be remembered not just for its bold reimagining, but for how it misjudged the balance between innovation and reverence, alienating longtime fans and sparking one of modern Hollywood's most telling public backlashes. As the backlash surrounding Snow White escalated, social media acted as an amplifier, turning isolated frustrations into a tidal wave of discontent. What may have once been a temporary PR issue rapidly became a full-fledged online spectacle. Photos circulated of nearly empty theaters on opening night, suggesting not only a commercial flop, but a resounding message from the public. Alongside these, clips and screenshots from Rachel Zegler's now notorious Instagram Live were dissected in detail, with users closely analyzing her tone, expressions, and comments for insight into her mindset and intent. The virality of these posts overshadowed the film's artistic merits. Its set design, costuming, and even musical score were lost in the noise. Instead of reviews discussing visual craftsmanship or technical achievements, the dominant narrative focused on Zegler's perceived frustration and refusal to consider that longtime fans may have had genuine concerns. The live stream became emblematic of broader dissatisfaction with how legacy properties are being reimagined for modern audiences. Critics from all corners began voicing concern. Notably, some who typically support modern reinterpretations of classic works acknowledged disappointment, not just in the performance or dialogue, but in the film's overt messaging. They argued that the remake strayed too far from the fairy tale's charm, abandoning nuance for statements that felt forced and overly political. On the other end, traditionalists pointed to Zegler's reactions as further proof that respect for the original material had been disregarded entirely. Rather than building a bridge between old and new audiences, the adaptation appeared to widen the divide, offering little to satisfy fans of the 1937 version and alienating those who had hoped for a more balanced update. During her live session, Zegler implied that the movie's struggles were driven by unearned hostility, suggesting that critics had dismissed the project without fair evaluation. Meanwhile, reviewers highlighted genuine flaws, inconsistent tonal shifts, shallow character development, and a storyline more concerned with messaging than emotional connectivity. The public perception that Zegler was unwilling to accept valid critiques only fueled the film's downward trajectory. Her responses were widely interpreted as defensive and, at times, dismissive, attributes that translated into an image of arrogance. This narrative likely discouraged even neutral or curious viewers from seeing the film in theaters. Compounding the issue, online users unearthed past posts from the film's creative team, discovering politically charged commentary that some felt contributed to the divisive aura surrounding the project. Rather than focusing on the magic of storytelling, discourse around Snow White became a culture clash, pitting artistic intent against audience expectation in a very public arena. The production set out to reshape a timeless fairy tale into a modern epic. But as the dust settled, it became evident that ambition alone is no match for the cultural weight of legacy. When Rachel Zegler's social media tirade collided with an already fragile rollout, it triggered a chain reaction that turned a box office flop into a cautionary tale reverberating across the entertainment industry. What could have remained a standard case of underperformance was instead transformed into a landmark misfire. Not because of poor visuals or flawed direction alone, but because of the perception that the film held contempt for its origins. Zegler's remarks during the now infamous Instagram Live amplified that narrative. Viewers who might have accepted a modern retelling were instead confronted with what felt like derision toward the charm, warmth, and simplicity that defined the original. As final numbers revealed staggering losses, it was no longer the film's artistic direction under fire, but the very philosophy behind its creation. That live stream meltdown, recorded, dissected, and endlessly shared, didn't just accompany the film's failure, it became the defining moment of it. Rather than fading into the background as another over-budget disappointment, this Snow White remake earned a place in modern Hollywood history as a textbook case in how not to handle legacy material. The story will be retold not in terms of its animation, music, or reimagined script, but in how a moment of frustration altered its fate. This saga highlights a lesson studios can't ignore. The more beloved the source material, the greater the risk of alienation. Audiences can embrace updates, but only when they feel that their love for the original is being honored, not discarded. Nostalgia is not a barrier to progress. It's the bridge by which old fans become new ones. Rachel Zegler's Meltdown, in the end, encapsulated more than just a publicity crisis. It revealed the fine line between reimagining a classic and rejecting it entirely, and the steep cost of crossing that line. Thank you for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update on stories just like this.